Hey losers, it's me. I'm here today with some fucking books I read in January. I've read, which is fucking wild, right? I mean, it's been a long time and I've had some really dumpy fucking months, but I think I'm getting like back in my groove, being real fucking groovy, and I'm just like not putting pressure on myself. I'm just doing whatever the fuck I want to do, basically. So that this month involved reading some fucking books, and I'm going to tell you all about them. You guys know I fucking love putting things into categories that don't fucking matter, so here I am doing it some more now that I've like read enough books for that to fucking matter in a month. So in total this month I read 8 books, which amounted to 2,336 pages over the month, which is about 75 pages a day. The genres I read this month were thriller. There were 2 thriller books, 3 horror books, 2 like medical nonfiction, and a fantasy. The oldest book I read this month was published in 1962. Then I read a book from 1984, one from 1987. I read a book from 1994. Then we jump all the way to 2014, 2016, 2022, and then a new release that came out in 2023. I finished one series. I mean, like, I didn't read the entire series this month, but like I read the last book in a fucking series, and like I deserve some pie for that, right? Jesus fucking Christ. I can't believe this shit. All right, I'm gonna get to the 2 books that I listened to on audio this month because, I mean, like I say it every time, if it's not in front of my fucking face, it's like it doesn't exist. So let's see. First, I read The Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Doughty. This was like a medical nonfiction / memoir. This is a book that I've wanted to pick up for a long time. I've waited to find like a good used copy of it, but that hasn't come my way so far. So I found this either like through my library or maybe Scribd, and I listened to it and it was really good. I think Doughty being the narrator, so the author being the narrator, really, I think that always kind of makes it a better book, especially when it's a memoir. So part of this is Caitlin describing like how she is growing up, how she gets into like the death industry, her views on that, her views on like how we treat death in our society versus how other societies and other cultures treat death. And it was really fucking interesting. The memoir stuff is fine. Like her working in the crematory is really cool. It's interesting to see. One of my very best friends she works at a funeral home and she is becoming a mortician, and like it's so really just so fucking interesting to listen to her talk about, and sad sometimes, of course, the things that come up, the bodies, the decedents that come to her and things like that. So it was cool and like gave me something cool to talk about with my friend, because I'm like, hey, listen, I read this book. Can you like expand on this? You know, like, I mean, we talk about it a lot because she loves it and I love hearing her talking about it, but you know what I mean? It was cool to like have something to add to the conversation this time. But that's of course just like a personal thing. I think this book was really great though. Audio was great. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It was good. Okay, then I also listened to The Hot Zone by Richard Preston, and this one was published in 1994. This is about the Ebola outbreak, and I don't know why I thought that this would be a good idea, but I was like laying in bed. I like often have trouble sleeping. I'm not a great sleeper. I will often wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to fall back to sleep. And so I couldn't fall asleep one night and I was like, okay, I'll just like pop on an audiobook. But I had just finished The Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, and so I was like, well, I don't know what I should listen to. And I was like, I'm kind of thinking about like more medical nonfiction. And that one popped up because it was like saved on one of my lists through my library. And I like put it on, I'm like, just like listening and trying to let my brain like relax and fucking fall asleep. And then it's like, oh yeah, his intestines sloughed off and fell out of his fucking asshole. And you're like, what? What the fuck? I mean, like, I've seen shit about Ebola, which is like truly fucking haunting. And I don't think, like, I haven't read a ton of really like traumatizing things in my life. I don't really dabble much in extreme horror, but I have watched a lot of really fucked up shit. Like things that it's like, I wish I had not done that. And there was something on Ebola that I watched once, and that's like one of those things where it's like, I wish I had never, like, I will never forget the scenes in that. And so I don't even know why I put on this fucking audiobook and why I thought it would be like a great idea to listen to something about Ebola while I'm trying to fall asleep, because like this is straight up one of the most horrifying fucking things ever. I really love like, what would you call that? Disease pathology, maybe, where you learn about why a virus does what it does. Rabies is really interesting like that, and I think that Ebola is also really interesting like that. It's just like, it's like these little brainless cells, but they're so fucking like evil, and it's like, how could you, how does this thing exist? It's so crazy, but like, it just wants to replicate, you know? And there are reasons you have the symptoms that you do, and you know, shit like that. So this was about Ebola. It was absolutely troubling. Like, oh my god, I had to turn the audiobook off. I was like, this is not it for me right now. But I did, you know, listen to it in the day when I wouldn't have like stress dreams of me bleeding out of my mouth and my ears and my eyes and shit like that. I don't know. Good book though. Really interesting, especially if you're into like the history of diseases, the pathology of diseases. I don't know. It was cool. It was interesting. Really, really fucking sad though. It's really sad. It's very, very sad. Okay, and then on to some of the physical books I read this month. First one, Dark Places by Thomas Altman. This book was kind of terrible. It was just really boring. It was really boring, and at the end you get to it and you're like, what is the point of all this? I don't know. I have no fucking idea. This was published in 1986, I think. I don't know. Does it matter to you? I kind of think that's interesting. Oh, 1984. This was published in 1984. I love the artwork on this. Great artwork. Does it credit an artist? Lou Glanzman. Okay, so now that we're all through that shit that I don't know if anyone else cares about, this was about a woman named Christy, right? And she has just gotten married, but her husband's like kind of a dink, and he is very jealous and uptight about where she is throughout the day and what she's doing. And like, that's super not cool in general, but like, she has a career where she has to be out doing things. She writes like a society column or something like that for their local newspaper. So she has to be out meeting people and going to events and shit like that. And her husband's just like a fucking party pooper. And it's like, how did you get involved in this if you knew this was how it was gonna be? But so you're like, what's going on with this? And then also Christy's beginning to meet like these other strange people, like someone from her husband's past, and then like this stranger that keeps popping up where she happens to be, and like all that stuff comes together. And that wasn't very interesting to me. I just like didn't care. And it was like this family tragedy in her husband's past, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't care. Sorry, dude. Then I finished, finally, The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This one came out in 2016, and this is the final book in her series called The Raven Cycle. And this is like a fantasy, like kind of folky story where it's this group of kids who are all together in this, I think it's West Virginia town. I don't know. It's not going to say on the back. I don't know why I'm looking, but it's a really small town. But in this small town, there is this like really prestigious boys' school, and the boys in this friend group all go to school there, and they're friends with this girl named Blue, who I don't know, just has a very unconventional life, very unconventional household, and really, like, the central plot in the story is that one of the boys, his name is Gansey, he's looking for this dead Welsh king who he believes is buried somewhere in their area, and like they're trying to find the tomb because of reasons. And like, you'll just have to read it. But I think that this is so well written, and the series as a whole was really great, but I think that this last book kind of was a letdown for me. It just, it didn't have that spark like the other ones did. It kind of felt like the author just wanted to be done with things, and like, hey, maybe she fucking did. But it just, I don't know, it didn't have the excitement I think that the first 3 books did, and that's all right. I mean, like, it was a good conclusion. I did feel like everything wrapped up like too neatly, like it was almost too easy to tackle the problems that they had in this book, but I don't fucking know. Like, I've never written a book, so I mean, I will criticize, of course, because I like doing that, but I'm also, I feel empathetic in some ways to the plight of the author, especially someone who has written 3 books that people really fucking love, and then you're like, okay, how do I deliver for this conclusion? So I don't know. I mean, like, it didn't not deliver, but it wasn't quite as spectacular as I was hoping it would be. But all in all, like, a really great series. I mean, I read the whole thing, which like I don't typically do, so that should say something, right? If we're talking about series. Next on my list is We've Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This was published in 1962. I liked this for the most part. This follows Mary Catherine Blackwood, and she also has a very unconventional household. She is 18, I think, which really surprised me because she definitely comes off like a much, much younger person. And she lives with her older sister and her uncle. And most of their family has died. Their parents, their uncle's wife. I can't remember if they had any siblings. But those people who are dead now all died at the same time as a result of poison in their sugar bowl. So there is a lot of speculation on who could have been responsible for that. When they died, the older sister, I think her name was Constance, was put on trial for that, but she was acquitted. There was no evidence that she had done this. And so you're like, okay, well, if she didn't, who did? And it seems like this, you know, little household knows exactly who did it. And so it's just kind of really strange. Like they live like outside of a small town in this like dilapidated manor. It reminds me of Great Gardens, if you guys have ever seen that, about the relatives of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who like once were high society and now, you know, have lost their money, and like it's like a mother and her daughter, and they're both, I mean, the mother's older, the daughter's an adult, but it's like Arrested Development almost, you know what I mean? Like these people, it's like they never really learned how to take care of themselves, and also they don't have help from anybody to like take care of themselves. So everything's fucking falling apart. And it's kind of like that in the Blackwood Manor. It's an interesting setting for sure. So everything's like going along kind of okay. You know, they avoid the town because of the perception that the town folk have of them, of course. But then one day a person comes to their door saying that he is their cousin and he is going to help them get things back together. But of course, some people are very suspicious of his motives, and that is really like a catalyst, and that really like triggers a bunch of weird things that happen. I liked it for the most part. Someone commented on one of my videos about this and said it was like a ghost story, but like no one's dead. And I think that's totally it. And at some points I was even like, this person has to be dead, right? Like that's going to be the twist in all this, that this person's been dead the whole time. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not that played out that way, but this was good. I liked this. I did find Maricat a little bit grating sometimes, just because, like I said, she's supposed to be an adult. She's supposed to be 18, but she really comes off much, much younger in a way that's sometimes charming and sometimes irritating. I don't know. Next here I have Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. This I had as an art copy, so that's how I read it, but a copy did come in like January's Nightworms box, so here it fucking is. I love when that happens, honestly, because I do, even if I don't love a book, I do like to have a physical copy of it because I'm a collector. I don't know, like I'm a pack rat. I love objects, physical objects. Also, like it's hard for me to remember about something if it's not in front of me because my brain is really fucking dumb. But anyway, this is a story about this woman named Mackenzie who is Cree, and she is living at this point away from her family, and that's kind of for a reason, because her family has suffered a couple really recent, really hard losses in their family. First of their grandmother, then of Mackenzie's older sister. And Mackenzie starts having these dreams and she'll wake up and it's like she's pulled something out of the dream with her. And eventually it disappears. But these dreams start getting like more and more sinister and start like having her older sister who has died, Sabrina, in them. And she makes the decision eventually that she needs to go home and see her family and get some help from this. And so this has a lot to do with dreams and dream sequences. And sometimes I like that, but more often than not, I find that I don't. In fact, like if it's a book where like, you know, dreams aren't really an important part of it, I just fucking skip over dream sequences because I find that they have like nothing to do with the actual plot, like 98% of the time, right? So this was hard for me to get through, I think, because of the dream. This is a really quiet horror. It's got a lot of folky stuff in it, which I did like. I did like seeing the culture in this and seeing the family interact with each other, but I felt like it was just a little too quiet for me, a little too slow going. It felt almost like a chore to pick up at times. I did push through it. I did get to the end because I wanted to see like exactly what was going on with Mackenzie and her family, but I found the conclusion a little underwhelming again. But like this story, the way it's told, it feels really super personal. It feels personal and it is really heavy with grief. So if you like that, which like I do typically, definitely try this, pick it up if you like dream stuff, if you like folk horror, if you like stories with like really tight-knit families who like work together to overcome something. There's that, and like this book is fucking beautiful. No matter how I felt about it, I love this beautiful, beautiful book. And you'd be supporting an Indigenous author, which is rad. So there you go. Oh my god, I've been blabbing for so fucking long. Next is maybe my favorite book of this month. This is Cherish Farrah by Bethany C. Morrow. This is a story about two teenage girls, Cherish and Farrah. At the point we're at in this book, Farrah is living with Cherish because her parents, who were once on the wealthier side, have lost their home in the neighborhood that her and Cherish live in, and Farrah doesn't want to give up what she has. So she is living with her best friend, Cherish, and kind of like, you know, trying to weasel her way into the family. And we follow, I mean, we're like in Farrah's head the entire time, and Farrah's like very calculating. Everything she does is for a reason, and every reaction she has is calculated. she just wants to be in control of everything. Yeah, it's kind of, it gets troubling. It gets really troubling. Like, the amount of control Farrah wants to have over Cherish in particular is very troubling, and it goes some really strange places. And I like did not expect like the kind of reveal that this had to be what it was, and it was really weird, and the end was really intense. I liked this a lot. This was a good book. I'm not quite like a favorite of forever, but I think this was the best book that I read this month, and it was quick and easy to read, and it was good. Okay, last fucking book I'm gonna talk about today is Misery by Stephen King. This was published in 1987, and this is one of the few Kings left that I haven't read yet, or I hadn't read because like now I read it. And you know what? This is a really fucking good book. This was a great book. This is the story of Paul Sheldon, who is an author of a well-beloved series where the main character's name is Misery, and he is on his way after finishing his final draft for the very last Misery book. He is driving and he is caught in a snowstorm. He plummets off the road on like a mountain pass and lives, but unfortunately has broken the shit out of his legs. And he is pulled from the wreck by a woman named Annie Wilkes, who he finds out is his #1 fan, and Annie is very upset with the conclusion of the Misery series. And Paul wonders if he'll ever make it from her house alive. Boy, this was great. I mean, the movie is probably one of like the greatest fucking movie adaptations ever made. But something about this book, oh boy, it is sinister. Annie is just such a fucking creepy weirdo. She's a great character. I think King, I mean, he like really does good at this, but like giving people these quirks and things like that. And it's like, how do you even come up with like a brand new fucking person in your head? It's so interesting to me. And he did it with Annie. I mean, she's so weird. She's so weird. She's fucking weird as shit. Yeah, I mean, I really liked Misery. It is brutal, it's gruesome, it's troubling and mysterious. And if you haven't picked this one up yet, if this is one of the Kings you haven't done, if you've seen the movie and think like, oh, I don't, like, why would I already know what's gonna happen. This does, I mean, the movie does follow this pretty closely, but, you know, there are some things that will surprise you in this. And I think, I don't know, it's just like a really fucking great book. I think this is up there in one of my favorite Kings. So yeah, there is Misery. Those are the 8 books I've read this month. I think that's all I have to tell you about today, but I'd love to know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. As always, I'd love to know what you read this month, if you had any favorites, if you read Bad Cree, that's a new release. What else? I have links to all my social media shit and my link tree if you want to check that out. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.